It's kind of a middle-aged gentleman with a tie, with a calculator in his hand, sitting on a chair with his pants down as if he was on the toilet. And the ad says the headline is "Paid to Poo." Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Amazing Marketing Show. We're discussing some amazing marketing topics today. We're looking forward to talking about some more food. We have a little ad that a fast food restaurant just put out that we really liked. We have some other topics on big companies, small companies, what they're doing with marketing. As always, marketing is in everything, and everything is marketing. Chris, how are you doing?
Dmitri, what up, man? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I am excited about this show. We have a little bit of a different format that we started last week, which I think went really well. So we're going to continue doing that. We're going to throw in a little bit of a segment at the beginning, but I think it's going to go smoothly again.
Let's jump into it, bro.
Okay. Well, the first thing is that I get this weekly email from a guy called the Ad Professor. He sends me all the best ads that he's curated over the last week. And this particular week just had hit after hit after hit. So I want to share some of these with you. Starting with, and I'll share my screen, and people watching on video can see. People who are listening, I'll just talk through it to describe it. And here we go. Boom. So you have kind of a grainy picture of maybe some 80-year-olds making out, leaning up against a car with a Burger King cup on the roof of the car. And it says at the bottom, Burger King, 70 years later, the fire's still burning. Flame grilled since 1954. Thoughts?
Now, I'm not sure if you said it, but you have this, like you said, older couple making out. I think what makes this thing super interesting, besides the older couple making out, is they have these older vehicles here, and then they have this lady who's got her right leg wrapped around the gentleman's left leg, so it makes it a little more intimate. Now, is he curated this ad? This is not a real ad, or is it?
This is a real ad.
This is a real ad. It looks like Mid Journey or something. Like I don't know, or this was taken a long time ago, but it doesn't look like that. Look at the cars. For
Yeah,
you guys listening, the
they're old
cars are
school
super old,
cars.
or old school cars. I love the ad. I think it's gonna get your attention with this older couple passionately making out in public. Um, I think it's a great ad. I'm like, where in the hell did he find this though? And is this real?
Let's assume that it is real. It might not be, but if it's not, they should immediately take it and use it because it's got all the elements that you want to see in a great ad. Because you have
Yes.
the immediate show-stopping, attention-grabbing picture of the old couple making out with the leg wrapped around the leg, plus the cars. It all makes it. It has the product placement of the cup, Burger King, and whatever you think about Burger King. Uh, this is, I think, a positive image into your subconscious. And next time you're going to be hungry, looking for fast food, and you happen to see a Burger King, you might just drive in there instead of McDonald's or Chick-fil-A. So for me, this is a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, and I think that not to stay too long on this, but what I like about it is what I find that works in stories or things about sex, drama, and humor. In this ad, you have sex and you have humor, done very well and tastefully. So I'm down. I think this is a good ad.
All right, let's go on to the next one. It's it's kind of a middle-aged gentleman with a tie, with a calculator in his hand, sitting on a chair with his pants down as if he was on the toilet. And the ad says the headline is "Paid to Poo." Now, who wouldn't want to be paid to poo? 10 minutes a day, 200 minutes a month, 2,400 minutes a year, a full week's pay pooing on company time. Get comfortable with Andrex, which presumably is a toilet paper brand. Your thoughts?
At first, I'm like, I don't even know. It's an interesting ad because paid to poo, right? You have alliteration, and you have this guy sitting on that office chair with his pants down and toilet on the ground. There's a bunch of like, what the hell is going on type stuff that will stop me. but I didn't immediately put together or connect it with toilet paper, a toilet paper brand. Never heard of Andrex. I don't know what the hell they're telling me. Like, it's pay to poo 10 minutes a day, 200 minutes a month, 2,400 minutes a year. Like, are you literally offering me a job to poo? Like, what the hell is this about? And so I think it's an interesting showstopper. But I don't, it's not immediately clear to me what this is all about.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you that it does stomp the show, but it's probably not going to relate to most people. Now, me being the data guy that I am, I immediately understood what I was talking about because the numbers is like, it's just like, okay, you're pooing 10 minutes a day. That adds up to about 2,400 minutes per year that you're pooping at work. So effectively, if you poop at work 10 minutes a day, then over the course of a year, your employer pays you a week's worth of salary to poop.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense. And for the guys who think like you, boom, you put it together. For the people who think like me, I'm like, what the, like, I put it together several minutes later or
Yeah.
minutes later, you know?
Yeah, it kind of who knows what the audience that they're going after, but to me this ad I think speaks also not just to my data part, but also some of the people I've actually known and grown up with. And there's a guy, and I won't say his name, but he had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and I knew him all through college. Then eventually he got a job, and one of the things he was most proud of is how much time he can poop on company time. And he worked out all these different strategies of how to get in there without the bosses noticing how often he's going. And there was a certain, like, this guy became a detective at understanding what time the bosses are busy when they're going out to lunch, and like all these other things where it could have been very productive from a work perspective if he put that time and energy into his work. But it was a government funded job where I don't know how much the opportunity to move up is, maybe. And this is kind of a testament to how government operates is, the employees are figuring out the optimal way of maximizing their pooping time on company time. Like to me, that ad really speaks to that memory I have of this friend of mine.
That cat seems to have his energy in the wrong place. To me, it's like, bro, it can't be like comfortable to poop that much, right? And it's probably impacting your way of life. Even imagine him going on dates and all this other stuff, or being much older and having kids. And like, if you're pooping that much and focusing all your energy on the most optimal time, like maybe put that energy towards fixing the problem so the quality of life would be a little better.
There was no question that it was impacting his life on all fronts, including the dating side and all sides. But the one shining moment, or the silver lining of it, was that he got to get paid more than others to poop at work. So I think he was taking it as kind of a consolation prize for what was going on in his life.
Hey, he found the positive in that situation. Good on him.
All right, so let's rate that ad. I don't know, maybe like a 2.5 out of 5, because
Yeah,
it had the hook, but didn't quite nail the audience.
I agree, bro.
Okay, a couple more here really quickly, and I'm gonna reshare. And there we go. We got the ad. That's just the headline says all caps sorry, and below it is some text and a little chihuahua at the bottom, fully zoomed in onto the face. So again, a nice hook in my opinion with the sorry, because you're curious what they're sorry about. Are you curious?
I would. I don't know. I'm still reading this thing. Use it for the dog's face is unique. But go ahead, finish. Please
Well,
finish.
did the headline get you to read? Would you have read this body copy just based on this headline?
Yes.
Okay. So headline did its job. Now, does the body copy do its job? Let's read it together. But even our search dog Taco couldn't sniff out any reason for you to keep scrolling. So stop scrolling, download Headway, use it for 15 minutes a day, become the most interesting person in the room.
I don't know what the hell you're selling me here. I'm not clear on it. Right? There's a lot going on here. The dog's face is interesting, and then the so what you have here, right? Two of the most important things typically in, let's say, in a landing page and even in an ad is your headline and your image. I think they hit on the headline here with a one word headline, which is hard to do, and then they hit on the image because the dog's face is unique. But the copying here, I don't know what the hell you're selling me. I don't know what your dog Taco has to do with it. I don't. The rest doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on this one. And great headline, failed otherwise.
Yeah.
So I don't know. 1.5 for the headline, otherwise 0.
Yeah, bro.
Okay, last one is. Let's see if it's. Oh, it's not going to play. Oh, shoot. Because I downloaded the PDF of this.
Oh yeah,
That's okay. I'll kind of say it what it was is that they had a speed motorcycle racing GIF, however you want to say it, of a guy falling off his bike and appearing to land on his feet, and then it cuts to the ad, which is the guy who fell walked right up to a order window for food, and then it pans over to another guy who stands up and starts selling you something.
I liked that one for the with our ads, we want to stop somebody from scrolling or snap them out of their trance, whatever they're in. That one does it because like you were saying, it's a motorcycle wreck, and the guy's flying off his bike, and you could tell he's about to land on his feet, right? And then it cuts to the guy landing on his feet at this stand about to order food, and the guy's, I'm like, hey, that did it, right? For a food stand commercial or whatever it is, that guy did his job by stopping you and you seeing what the heck's happening, and then him doing his pitch. I think I liked that one.
Yeah, I like it too. And we don't know what the guy's selling, so I guess we can't rate the ad fully. But as far as the hook goes, and from a video perspective, the other ones were all static images. So from a video perspective, that was engaging and got the foot in the door. So we'll give him credit for doing that. And it kind of reminds me of what a trend that I've been seeing. I don't know if you have, but where there's videos like ours, a podcast interview, but underneath or half the screen is taken up by something like that, like the video race or a video game or just some other engaging movement of video to keep people's attention, even though the content's not about the video game, it's just about the podcast and the speaking. But I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I haven't really seen that. That's interesting.
I wonder how it's working. I guess it depends on who your audience is. Maybe an older audience wouldn't really even want that video game thing to be there. Younger audience, maybe they don't have quite the CPMs, and it just depends on the content. But maybe something to look out for as we go. Okay, so let's move on to the main segment. We have 4 topics prepared that we want to discuss, and I'm pretty sure we're going to disagree on at least several of these, knowing some of where we stand on certain things. So let's jump into the first one, which is that somebody, an expert in the field, says that Donald Trump's Truth Social app won't capture serious market share. The question is, what do you think about Trump's Truth Social?
I agree that it will not catch serious market share, and here's why. If you look at Facebook, when Facebook started, it was used by the younger demographic. Same thing with Instagram, and then now with TikTok, right? TikTok started with the teens, and then now you have my mom on it, getting sucked down the rabbit hole. Truth Social, if you look at the average Trump supporter, you're going to have you're going to have the Trump supporters in college, this, that, and the other. But when I look at it, your Trump supporter was actually going to be donating money and this, that, and the other. I would say they're probably over 35 at least. They're a homeowner, obviously Republican, likely Caucasian, so on and so forth. I don't think that the older demographic is are the ones who launch off social media platforms. At least it hasn't happened yet. Could it happen in the future? Yeah. But the fact that, my father-in-law is 74 years old, he's not on the truth, social platform. And the dude has a Trump 45, like literally a gun that has Trump on it. It's a 45. I think Trump was a 45th president. So it's playing off that, but it has Trump on the gun handle. This guy is a big Trump fan, and even he is not on Truth Social. So even the hardcore Trump supporters are not supporting the social media platform. So the fact that it's going after an older demographic, and that older demographic may not even log on to this thing, I don't think I don't think this platform blows up. What do you think?
Let's look at the numbers. They recently IPO'd through a SPAC, special purpose acquisition company, which is a sketchy thing already, but that's the way a lot of companies have been IPOing over the last 5 years or so. And it reached a peak market cap of almost $8 billion, making Donald Trump's stake in that worth about $4 billion at its peak, which is significant. That being said, it is stock. It's not cash. Can't sell it. If he were to sell all his shares, the company would go to zero. And the company has dropped in value since. I think they've also disclosed now that they are public, that they aren't profitable. So it's just which is not unusual for apps. But here's where I think on it. So the question is a little bit vague, because what is the market, I guess, that we're talking about? B, what is significant market share mean? Like 1% of all of social media market would actually be significant share. And he is number 45. He might be number 47 as well. One of those presidents who has two numbers. I think there's only a couple in history that's ever happened to. And I just so a little bit more history of at least what I'm aware of. When he was still president, he was actually banned off of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and he famously boycotted Twitter and started his own Twitter copy called Truth Social. And like you're saying, the real true conservatives, but probably, well, not just conservatives, just Trump supporters went on there who are more tech savvy. The question to me is, how will the current platforms act over the next, let's say, 4 to 10 years, especially during a presidential cycle, especially if he wins it again? Are they going to go back to really pushing against him and banning him and that type of stuff? In which case, I think Truth Social can legitimately get significant market share. If the existing platforms play nice with him and he comes back to posting on there, then this company probably will die. So it really just depends on the positioning and what the competition ends up deciding to do.
I see that point. I still don't think, even if he comes back, I think, didn't Twitter like reactivate him or something, or
Yeah,
I don't know.
when Elon Musk came back, he reactivated Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is boycotting Twitter.
So let's say he, gets elected again, and the social media platforms are still banning him. I still don't think this thing reaches critical mass. And you're right. What is critical mass? Even if you have 1% share of the whole social media market, that's significant. But I just don't think that Truth Social starts playing with the TikToks and Instagrams and Facebooks of the world. I just don't think people can be walking
No,
around with Truth
probably
Social on
not.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would, yes, but they do maybe start competing with smaller one, maybe with Snapchat, now completely different demographic, but yes, they're not probably not going to be Facebook level, which is would be hard to
I'd be
overcome.
surprised if they're Snapchat or even Pinterest level. And Pinterest is significant, right? But These things, Snapchat, Pinterest, these are worldwide apps. Who in the hell cares about Trump outside the United States for the most part? Unless, like you're not going to have, I don't see some cat in Africa with a true social app, but that person they may have a Pinterest account, they may have a Snapchat. I just don't think it has a worldwide appeal, but that's just my thoughts.
Oh. Well, well, I guess we'll see. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens and see if he wins. And I guess we can come back to that one. Okay, next one is about Amazon, and this is kind of a funny one. So it's not exactly what you might think. So we all know Amazon.com sells how many of her products they sell, huge company. But the FCC said they're investigating Amazon for selling unlawful goods, including electronics like jammers, which is, I think they use for signal jammers, radio frequency jammers, and other signal wave disruptors. Those are the examples. So, what do you think about Amazon allowing illegal goods on their platform?
How about you go first on this one? Give you the opportunity.
Well, if something is illegal, then it should probably not be sold on Amazon. Quite frankly, I mean, this isn't always the case, but I heard it somewhere is that the laws are the will of the people for the most part. Now, there are bad laws, of course, and maybe there are special interests that get laws passed that are not exactly the will of the people. But for one reason or another, radio frequency jammers have been banned. I think that Amazon shouldn't be selling them. If people want them, need them for some other reason, they can probably get them somewhere else. But yeah, Amazon is just, it doesn't make sense to me.
I think let's assume that this, you said something that stood out to me where these big companies will take risk knowing that the money they make off of the risk is worth the fine, right? So you fine me $1 billion, but we made 3 billion. Well, whatever, let's pay it. So let's assume that Amazon, they're not idiots. I'm pretty sure somebody in the compliance department should be watching this and watching things that get approved or not. Let's assume that they knew about this and they just let it go. If that's the case, I don't mind it because it's not like they're selling, poison or something that would just straight up harm people or hurt people. I don't think that these frequency jammers hurt people. From what I don't think so, unless I'm missing something. And that market, look at this market here. This is who's buying the frequency jammer. This is going to be your prepper, massive market, right? Preppers you can make some money off. And so in this case, if I'm running the show with Amazon, I'm not risking it. But if Amazon was like, hey, we got this massive market of people who will buy these things, and then if the FCC comes after us or somebody comes after us, we just get a slap on the hand or we get some kind of fine. But we made all this money, and if that was a calculated risk, I don't hate it. I'm not mad at it. It's a smart business move.
Yeah, I'm not super against jammer. Like, I don't really have a strong opinion on this. They're saying some of the possible uses might be keep away unwelcome drones, which is, I think, going to be a bigger problem as the years go on here, and we're about to have drone delivery and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Disable security cameras. Now that could be used in a nefarious way. Block Wi-Fi networks. That could go either way. So it really depends on what you're using it for. I doubt Amazon cares about this. Like they would, if the government's like, you can't sell them, like, okay, we won't sell them. It was probably an accident, if I had to guess. So, but you look at, so big companies do get away with stuff. They just get away with pretty much anything. You look at, there's this case of the Silk Road, and Ross Ulbricht, I believe, is still in jail from running the Silk Road, which was distributed network of sellers that could sell effectively whatever they want. He built a platform for people to sell whatever they want. And he's the one that ended up going to jail. He didn't sell, he didn't buy any of that stuff. He just built the platform, which I think is messed up because Amazon is a platform. They're not buying or selling these things. They're not going to go to jail. They're just going to say, hey, stop that. So I think that's pretty messed up of how there's different standards depending on the size of your company.
Yeah, I agree. Also, going back to what you're saying with the Silk Road, though, this dude, if people can sell anything they want, he probably knew they're not. He wasn't coming out to be an Amazon or even a Temu. He knew what people would end up trying to sell, and they're going to be shit that you can sell on Amazon and Temu. So, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But I think that cat you're mentioning, what immediately comes to mind is this dude knew some illegal shit was going to go down, and he facilitated it.
Yes, but how illegal is building a platform where people then do illegal stuff on it? That's the question. Even if he knew illegal drugs would be sold on it. And nowadays you're seeing states in the United States like Oregon completely decriminalize. I think going beyond decriminalization of hard drugs like heroin and fentanyl and other things. I think you're literally allowed to buy them in certain states. So you can't get harder drugs than that. It's illegal in certain states, not federally, but it's just having the right contacts certainly helps. Certainly helps.
Yeah.
And that kind of that lead. So we're gonna have a fourth topic, which is an interesting one. I'm gonna tease it before we do our third topic. We have a Vietnamese business lady who was sentenced to death for a white-collar crime, multi-billion-dollar fraud case. But that would never happen in the U.S. And depending on who she knew, like look at SBF, that guy who ran the crypto fund that went under. That was a multi-billion-dollar fraud. He's not going to be put to death, and he only went to jail, I believe, for 25 years, not even to life. So huge standards, and he was a huge donator to certain political parties that may have gotten him certain favors. He was never even put into jail prior to his conviction. He was under house arrest. So there's certain favors that money can buy you, and connections can buy you. So that's our fourth topic. Let me get into the third topic before I let you get. Sorry for taking that whole segment or that whole teasing segment. But I'll just pass this third one to you. Is that there's an article from The Atlantic that says that dating apps are falling back to earth, and effectively saying that they're getting less usage than they used to. What do you think?
My first question is why. You and I are married. I haven't when Tinder and all that stuff really started hitting. This is 2010. I think that's like right around the time I met my wife. And so I wasn't really. I used when I was on the dating sites. They weren't as accepted back then. Like you were almost kind of embarrassed to say that you met on this dating site. Now, this is early 2000s or whatever. And then after Tinder and things like that, it's just a normal thing. It's just a normal way of meeting people. My question is why? I don't really have an opinion, good or bad towards it falling, but you would think that if anything else, it would just increase with the advent of technology and people. Like if you could just sit at home and not have to, like, you have the bar experience but at home, like especially as a guy where there's no real risk. Like you go to a bar. I know for me back in the day to walk up to a woman in a bar, that would take a lot of guts from me back in the day. Whereas now, if I could just sit home on my couch and just swipe and send out messages, there's low risk. And so I would think that behavior would actually increase and there would be more competition in the app space. So while it may not be as like just it might not have the craze that Tinder and whatever the other apps had at one point. I still think that that market would grow as time goes on.
Well, it's been growing for a long time. You're right. There used to be a negative stigma about it. You would never want to admit to anything. I've heard of couples talking amongst themselves like what that met on an app. They say, where are we going to tell others that we met?
Yep.
Because it's not going to be the app. It has to be some other story, and they have to get it all together. And naturally, eventually, the truth comes out, and the magic is lost because it was on a dating app. And to that point, I think that there is a magic that is missing on these dating apps, which is why, for all the reasons that you mentioned, is why dating apps just blew up like crazy. The ease, the convenience, the options. You literally have thousands and thousands of options at any given moment. And I want to talk about that too, but I think people are getting tired of that, and they're losing the magic of meeting somebody in person. Once you schedule a date on an app, you're kind of already committed to them, even if in person you don't have that connection. And then eventually, maybe there's something there, and you just keep pushing it through. And even if you get married, and I know some successful, some unsuccessful marriages that met on an app, I don't know. I think the magic is missing.
Bro, my ex girlfriend, I only had like really two girlfriends, like two real girlfriends post high school. But my first one, she met her husband on Craigslist. I was like, what the hell? Like Craigslist was like the original Tinder in my opinion. Like you were just kind of going there to try to hook up, probably pay somebody or something like that to hook up. I don't even know why I'm telling this story, but I think to your point, the magic being lost. Yeah, the magic has been lost because it's probably been normalized. Um, but still, bro, I think that given the everyday, like this, at least for the dude, when we look at men and why we get so terrified to go walk up to a woman and why we get terrified for rejection, there's a lot of reasons behind it. But I think at a primal level, if you were in a a little tribe, right? Like whether your ancestors are in Africa or they were in Europe or whatever it is, back in the day, if you were in a little tribe and you got rejected from their tribe, there was a real risk of death. If you got rejected from the women, there's a real risk of you not being able to procreate and have your lineage continue, right? So that is in us today, even though the situation has still changed. And so while the appeal for the app and it's not as exciting as it once was, I still think for dudes it's excellent because it removes that perceived risk with rejection, right? Subconscious or conscious risk.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the truth, I think, is a lot grimmer for the dudes than it's made to sound. So I've read these statistics before. Is that most men rate women at an average of like a 6.5, which is above average. Most men think most women are above average, which is statistically impossible because like the average is the average, but most
Right.
men rate them higher. Most women, on the other hand, rate most men as below average, and it's skewed way worse than the men do positively to the women. Like, most women find most men kind of abhorrent and disgusting, at least in their ratings.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is that 90% or more of the matches end up going to 10% of the guys. And so what ends up happening because of these apps and the internet is that for the top tier of, let's say, looking guys, they have a much bigger pool of women to choose from and who are even willing to share a man. And everyone in the bottom 90% actually get no matches. They get nothing, whereas they used to get something because there's only so much that the top tier could take. So is actually getting worse in terms of rejection, in my opinion. So yes, you don't have to go and get rejected in person, but you still getting rejected at a crazy rate online.
That is an interesting point. And um, a I don't think that the percentage that's an interesting point, and I don't think that the percentages will swing as far that sounds about right, right? 10%, right, of the men probably getting 90% of the women. But with and that works for the guy who looks good. And the guy who looks good, I think it becomes a loop because he looks good, so it's easier for him to talk to women, and he kind of learns women, and it just becomes easier for those guys, those naturals. Then there's a guy like me. I don't consider myself. I would not be in that 10%. I didn't just have women sending me messages, right? I don't think I'm not just the most handsome dude ever. But what I learned was that attraction can be created. So you're right. Most women think guys don't look good, but the difference is if a guy thinks a woman doesn't look good or she's not attractive, her personality can only help so much, and who she is it does help, right? Don't get me wrong, like it does help, but it can only help so much if you're really not that attractive as a female. As a male, you may not be that attractive, but there's two things: either a lover or a provider. So if you're a lover, the guy he might not be that attractive, but he might be a bad boy. He might be funny. He might be somebody who picks on her, who doesn't fall for her beauty, who doesn't really, he's just super confident, whatever. He makes himself attractive. Or you could be somebody who's super rich. You might not be that attractive as a person, a dude, whatever, but you're super rich. A man, can create attraction. And if you are motivated enough and you get on these apps, you can learn how to create attraction. So you might not look, and I'm going somewhere with this point, but you might not be that 10% or in that 10% of good looking people. But if you could write copy, if you could do a headline that gets her attention, if you can make her laugh, you can make her feel something, then now your opportunity increases. And so I don't think that the percentage will swing that much. I think a small percentage of the men will still date a bigger percentage of the women, but it doesn't mean it can't. And I think that it won't swing that much because most men, they're sitting at home and they're lazy and they're just swiping and they're just going to take whatever they can get. But if they just put a little more effort towards it, learned how to talk to women, learn how to kind of hack these things and how to get a woman's attention, then those percentages could change if they did that.
That's true. That there's some other guys that I know that this was at this point, it was almost 10 years ago, that literally hacked the whole texting and what you say. And there's probably courses that came out after this.
Oh, yeah.
But so it could be like literally hacked. So it's not you. It's not you. So when you get into that relationship, it wasn't you. So I don't know. I just think the magic can be lost. So what I would be curious about is what are the successes or what the percentage of success of a relationship of meeting in person versus online. And in person can have different categories, like you met at a bar or you met through a friend referral or you met at a quality event such as a church or a community event or some kind, or mutual friend's birthday party. That's already pre-qualified in that respect. So, and even what are they called? Arranged marriages. I would like to see all the stats of what leads to the more successful relationships, because if online is leading to more relationships that are successful on whatever terms the people deem, it's not like you even have to say it's only successful if XYZ. It's like, do you have a successful relationship? And people can determine for themselves. So without that information, I don't know. I only have anecdotal information, but but men are supposed to be brave, right? And they're supposed to go out on a limb and do something that they're scared of doing. And if we keep taking away opportunities to do that, we're losing our strong men, which we are, right?
You said something that stood out to me. One more point is that you're right. Like you could take that course and learn all the things to say and kind of get that whole copywriting thing down, which is a skill. Like learning all that is a skill that you could develop. but then you eventually do have to talk to her and you have to meet her. And if this person you presented via, writing is not congruent with who she talks to or who she meets, then it's all for nothing. And so it's like, if you lied on the application, you lie on, hey, I'm a doctor, I can do surgery. Then it comes time to do it. And, you're screwed. You have to be consistent with what you are doing there, which is an interesting point. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, just to, I guess, wrap on this one is that in terms of growth of dating apps, I agree with you in the disagreement of the article that they're fading. Maybe it's temporary plateau, but I expect more and more. Now, some of these market caps that I just looked up, like Match Group, which owns Match.com, Tinder, they're worth almost $10 billion. Bumble's worth 2. Grindr's third at 2 as well. Like, these apps are valuable.
Yep.
And another thing on the data side that I'm looking at is there's just this huge spike. If you look at the charts of where people met, and it was like at a bar, through a friend, online, and just spikes up for online around 2012, and everything else just drops. So we're all just sitting at home, and we're all, well, not us too, but yeah, the people who are dating right now. So interesting. We'll have to come back and maybe find some polls of how happy people are on average based on where they met.
Dope.
Okay, well, final topic is this lady. It says, a court in Vietnam sentenced real estate tycoon Trong My Lan, which is a great name, by the way. The side note, and this is not meant to be disparaging in any way, but there are some Eastern names, like Eastern Asian names, that are just amazingly hilarious when looking at it from an American perspective. And many of them, if not all of them, are like euphemisms, because Trong My Lan, I mean, you could take that any way you want. Trong My Lan, I'm thinking, you want Trong My Lan right now?
my literally my best friends, like my brothers, 2 of them are Vietnamese, right? So this allows me to be racist. I'm playing. But anyways, like my best friends are 2 Vietnamese cats. And I grew up in their house. And some of the names, to your point, are super interesting, especially the ones that are like Phoc, like FHOAC or whatever. It could be Phoc King. Like it just, I mean, it was just all this different stuff. But I will say this, and same thing I tell my homeboy, man, like I thought you were going to go somewhere else with what you're about to say, so I'll go ahead and go there. There's some languages that are beautiful and some that are not, right? Like there's some accents that are beautiful and some that are not. Man, if you hear 2 people, like my Vietnamese homeboy get in an argument with his brother or the parents start fighting, it's like cats fighting or something. It's like, it's just a very unique language, but that's not what this article is about. Let's get back to what this article is about.
Dude, I agree with you, because we're on the playground a couple weeks ago with the kids, and I'm pretty sure there was a lady with her child next to us speaking Vietnamese, and it seemed to be a very mild conversation, but it still sounded intense.
Yeah.
So yeah, back to this article. I think, well, actually, before we get back to the article, because this is the cherry on top of what we're talking about, is that their currency is called dong.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start over again. A court in Vietnam sentenced real estate tycoon Trong My Lan Thursday to death over her role in a 304 trillion dong financial fraud case, which is about $12 billion. And her trial was just a couple weeks ago. It went fast, and I mean, kind of unheard of. What are your thoughts?
This is nuts. I saw this article on BuzzSumo, and then I saw it on Yahoo, shortly thereafter, and Yahoo reported like 44 billion. So in this article that talks about 12 billion, that's about 3% of the country's GDP, right? And 44 billion, well, that's obviously more than 3%. Um, my thoughts on this woman getting death over it, you got to be cognizant of the playing field that you are playing on. So first of all, it's just fraud, right? And she was obviously committing fraud. And for there's you don't yeah, you don't want to be frauding people. And at the same time, you and I did not grow up in the I don't know where she's from. Let's just say that she was really poor. I've seen pictures of parts of Vietnam from my homeboy. My parents grew up in shanty towns, Jamaica. I've seen poverty. So when you grow up in that type of poverty, it's if you haven't grown up in that type of poverty, it's kind of hard for you to say what you would and wouldn't do for money, right? So for her, if she grew up in poverty, it's hard to judge her if you came from nothing. But even at that, if you're going to play these big games, and especially in that country, then you got to be willing to take these types of sentences. Like you play this game, like you were saying in America, okay, you're going to get significant jail time, right? And was it worth it? Well, that's up to you. But here, she's playing this game where she's frauding people to the tune of billions. You got to know, man, Vietnamese ain't going to play that shit. And this is kind of what you get when you play that game in this country. What are your thoughts?
Every country has their own values, and depending on and their own what they're willing to tolerate. If we look at the United States, we seem to be willing to tolerate fraud significantly more than Vietnam, for example, because we haven't sentenced anyone to death, because maybe that's not the values of this country, is to kill people for nonviolent crimes, but maybe it's something to at least consider and talk about, and what are the pros and cons of it. Because there, in countries like this, Singapore, I believe there's just minimal, Dubai, there's minimal crime, because if you do commit a crime, there's outsized punishment, and people just don't do it. They just don't do it, and if they do, they get killed or something very bad physically done to them, not just fines, not just jail time, but a physical punishment, which yeah, I don't know. Like we live in the United States, and this seems strange to us. People in Vietnam now, these people are getting this country, let's say, and this bank is getting defrauded through bribe. It's saying she bribed officials. She's effectively stealing money from the population of Vietnam. So they could be very angry with her, and they don't want that. People don't want fraud. Let me put it this way. There's a big difference between the countries where fraud is prevalent and fraud is less prevalent. Like, huge difference. Where in probably these East Asian countries, in Eastern Europe, in I'm guessing in India and Pakistan, there's more corruption, which leads to less trust and less wealth built, because it's all getting siphoned out. So, long story short, I am not against this.
Not against the death penalty for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one, because to your point, this might be a larger conversation, but I think fraud happens anywhere, especially when people have power. And it's going to happen at the government level, and I think some places are probably just more more unabashed. Like, hey, you know what? Guess what? It's happening right in front of your face, and they don't care to cover it up as much, so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure it's happening here in the States. It just might be done in a manner that's a little more slick, right? And not so egregious, at least some cases, not so egregious. So I think it's being done everywhere. I think death is a little harsh. But boy, do you send an opinion. Boy, do you send a message. The next person looks at trying to do fraud like this at that level is probably going to think about it when you start killing people. And the same thing would happen here in the States. If you get murdered for being a Bernie Madoff, we would probably see less of those.
Yeah, and I would take away the word murder and replace it with just killed, because you're not
Killed.
being because it is
Yeah.
a big difference. I would actually be supportive of some. I mean, this is a weird thing to say. It's like probably hashtag unpopular opinion, but
Bring it.
there's some there's I'm sure there's massive fraud, massive corruption in Western governments, where if some real examples were made out of it, there would be a lot less of it, which would lead to a significant increase in the standard of living for the citizens of this country. And I think there would be less war if there was less corruption. I think a lot of war happens because it's an easy way to launder money, quite
Yeah.
frankly. Simple as that. So there's hundreds of thousands of young people, soldiers dying, which is messed up for no good reason. So if I would exchange that for the dozens who would be executed for defrauding its citizens. And I think that the term there is even treason. It'd be treason. There's treasonous acts that are happening, and it would be great to put an end to it.
You yeah, you won me over with that argument. It's kind of hard to go against that one. I agree with that in many ways. And one of the things that stands out to me about this when I read this article, it talked about the Vietnamese government looking to crack down on fraud more. And I wonder how they pulled that off, right? Because fraud's usually at the highest level. And so to crack down, you'd have to have people on board. Like, for example, even here it talks about in this woman's case that they're investigating several people, including a former president. Um, so in order for the crackdown to happen, those who are doing it cannot be involved. Otherwise, they wouldn't initiate that. And I think that that's a challenge we would see, here in the States or wherever, where, all right, you want to crack down on it. Well, the people who are cracking down may be involved. Therefore, there wouldn't be a crackdown.
Kind of related, but not. And kind of related is Trump's Truth Social, which is why I think it has potential. Is because you have this population who believes that, just like you're saying, there's corruption at a certain level, and the people who are overseeing that organization or government is also corrupt. Like we saw with the banking situation in 2008, where the banks were lending out these AAA rated investments, and the credit agencies were supposed to say, no, this is junk, we're rating it AAA as well, which is the big problem that happened. And so with Trump Social, it could be, well, the media organizations are corrupt, so they say, and the people who are in charge, let's say the government who's supposed to regulate it, are also corrupt. So can we at least have our own Truth Social, where we can get the information straight from the source and actually get some real, non corrupted information? So I think it has a chance.
Truth, my ass, man. And not just Trump, just I'm learning when it comes to this type of stuff, the truth is what just confirms your opinion, right? So it's just like, hey, who's going to tell me more of what I want to believe? The truth can be highly subjective. Yet another, that's a different topic.
Yeah, true. Well, true. Somebody famously started that. I don't remember if it was Oprah or somebody else, but it went from truth, like objective truth, to my truth and your truth. It's like, what? What? There's no longer, if it's somebody's, it's no longer a truth. It's an opinion, but
That's true, man. That's true. But yeah, that's how it is. Like, people have what they believe. Their perception is their reality, and that's their truth. Doesn't mean it's actually true.
yeah, it's a big difference. So with this one, There is also this case, and I can speak from my experience, which was not defrauding anyone, but my experience was in high school. One day I decided to skip class. Just I'm going to skip class, and the next day I'm like, man, that was a great day I had yesterday. Why don't I just skip 2 days? Like what? 2 days, no big deal. And by the third day, I'm like, what am I going to say that I missed 2 days? I don't know what I'm going to say. And I couldn't think of an excuse. So I'm like, I'll just skip the rest of this week and think of an excuse. By the following Monday, I'm like, dang, I just missed a week. There's nothing I can say. And I just missed, and I kept not going to school for 3 straight weeks.
Damn.
And my point is that sometimes you don't intend to find yourself where you find yourself. Like, yes, you paid someone off and you thought you were going to stop there, but then it just kept snowballing and snowballing, and it was this house of cards that you kept building up. So I do have some sympathy, but at this scale, at this level of corruption, it's not a strong enough argument.
I really like your viewpoint on this one. I haven't really been agreeing with all the stuff that you've been saying lately, but this one lands with me because that concept you talked about, it happens and it's a transferable concept. You could be on a diet and you're like, you know what, today I'm going to ease off and I'm going to just, you know, have a sandwich, a chip and, some chips and a sandwich or whatever, and dessert or whatever it is. Then the next day, to your point, you're like, oh, I had that chip and that sandwich was good, and that dessert wasn't that bad. Let me have two desserts this time, and then two bags of chips, and then next thing you know, 4 weeks later, you gain the weight back that you lost for the previous 4 weeks. You get what I'm saying here is that things snowball, and it happens slowly, and you don't see it until it becomes a big deal.
I guess the lesson is always have a stop loss. It's like when you get to this level or this weight or this, just no matter what, you have to stop. And it's like that would be a good rule to have.
That'd be
And when I
hard to
pay
follow,
off 10
right?
government officials, I have to stop.
Exactly.
All right, Chris, it's always a pleasure doing these episodes with you on Amazing Marketing Show. Today we had some fun topics. We looked over the ads. I'm excited what next week will bring.
Sounds good, man. Good episode, and I appreciate you and the stuff that you put into this always, bro.
All right, talk to you later.
Peace.